Welcome to the Callis Mindset, where discipline meets growth, and average isn't an option. I'm Kannon Callis. Each episode, we'll sit down with leaders, builders, and entrepreneurs who think differently and execute relentlessly. If you're here to sharpen your edge, you're in the right place. I'm really excited for today's guest. It's Rudy Reynoso, a first-generation college graduate, a proud member of Pi fraternity, which is Pi Kappa Alpha, and yes, he's also a musician. He literally does magic. Since college, he's built a video production company, moved to Austin, Texas to expand his creative footprint, and grown the Give and Go Soccer podcast to over 500,000 listeners. He also hosts Rudy's Roundtable and is now preparing for the next chapter of his life in New York. Rudy blends leadership, performance, and media in a way that's both intentional and ambitious. And I'm excited to have you on today, Rudy.
Kannon, thank you for that amazing introduction. That is awesome. That's awesome. So excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. And I love your background. It's just really cool. And, we talked a little bit about before this podcast, you mentioned you were an oldest child. And I am too, surprisingly. What does that do for you mentally, and what responsibilities has that brought for you early on?
Wow. Yes. Being an oldest child really defined me growing up. And I think that the older I get, I see just how much birth order for siblings affects one another. It can differ family to family, but for me specifically, I'm the oldest of three brothers, and each of our brothers falls into the older, middle, and youngest child stereotypes very much. And something else I realized as well is that my parents are both oldest siblings in their families. On my father's side, he's the oldest male in his family out of 12, and my mother, the oldest woman, the oldest sister out of 6. And I think there's something with that where you almost become like a second parent, especially to the younger siblings, more so just kind of looking out for them, trying to, taking the initiative with chores or helping out around the house. There's a greater sense of responsibility, at least for me, that was very much inculcated, as well as the expectation, right, to kind of do better and lead the way. Thankfully, at least in my household with my parents, there was that spirit of wanting to do better and do more, but it was never a crippling pressure that I've seen other parents bestow upon their kids. I think that it may come from a positive place, but to me, thankfully, it was never too much of a burden. I was always celebrated for any achievements, but it very much propelled me, I think, forward. And it's really been a very strong motivating force in my life, like the older brother kind of taking those first steps. And it helped me a lot to very quickly get out of my comfort zone because I needed to learn this. I always use the example of just going to college, right? I mean, my family immigrated here to the US in the 80s, became US citizens, really fought for the American dream. I'm the first one in my family born here in the States. And there's just so much that we just take for granted as Americans of just how society functions, the order of things, how to even get connected with certain things that I just had to learn. Like I wasn't born into a game plan, like how to kind of come up with a game plan along the way. But being the older brother, as you can probably relate to, helped me a lot with taking that motivation, those first steps forward, and it's paid so many dividends in my life.
Yeah. I think that's, I couldn't have worded it better. I feel like there's a certain degree of pressure that some people assume comes with that role of being born first with no example prior. It's the parents' first try in raising children, which usually is a little tough. They haven't been through some of those challenges that they would know by the second, third, fourth child. And my family's the same way. I'm the oldest of 3. We definitely fit into those stereotypes of the first child is expected to do a certain level of responsibility or, kind of pave the way. The middle child is, kind of fits the standard of sort of the opposite, kind of like you got to nudge him to do some stuff. He's a killer now, and he's really good at his job now that he's an adult. And then the baby, which is my sister, everything was kind of taken care of for her in a way, but at the same time, with each of those positions comes different challenges. And for me, it was pressure that I put on myself. For my brother, it was pressure my parents expected of him because they saw what I was doing. And then for my youngest sister, it was kind of a loner a little bit because she's 10 years younger and she was the only one in the house for a long time. And so, with the other two older, and we didn't have as much communication. But I think there's definitely a lot to say about those stereotypes, but the roles that we fit into. And you mentioned that you were first generation. I mean, your family, first generation Americans. You were first generation going to school here and to go to college. And it looks like you actually paved a leadership path during that, which is the time that we met. I want to talk a little bit about, how did you decide UNT? What did you get involved in your freshman year? At what point did you start getting involved with leadership and other organizations?
Great question, man. And just real quick, yeah, in my family, those pattern stereotypes kind of resemble very much in mine as well. With leadership and organizations, I think really early on, I was very lucky that my father has always been an entrepreneur. And one thing that he created with his sister, so he's the oldest brother, oldest sister in Sherman, Texas, they created a magazine called La Voz Hispana, which means the Hispanic voice. And it really was just kind of thrown together. My dad just found a printing company, and along with my aunt, they sold advertisements and really kind of represented the Latino voice in the community. But that showed me just kind of how like the importance of getting involved and kind of service towards the community, that it's okay to, have your own agenda, your own job, whatever you're doing. But if you can share it with the community, that's like the end goal. That'd be the best step. So having their example of my parent and my aunt, both of them kind of inspire that idea of service. Going into high school, I was very introverted, and this all kind of correlates a lot with magic, but magic helped me break out of my shell to meet other people. So in school, I was very much a nerd, but because I did magic, and I did magic to pretty much anyone, the cool kids, the skater kids, the cheerleaders, the band kids, it made me pretty popular and well known and well liked. And I got to figure out how to relate to everyone through magic, and just see that there's so much more that we have in common, even though we may exterior, the goth kids may not be the same as the prep kids, but they're still going through development and everything. But it allowed me to run for class president. And that was sophomore year. And I remember it was so vivid because every year I ran against like the most popular girl in school. So I became sophomore, junior, and senior class president in high school. So it was like a crazy track record. I get to UNT and I see during orientation the student body president at that time, Kevin Saunders. You might remember him. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, like I want to be that. I want to do that. And it was cool because I saw not a Latino in that post, but that following year, that same year I joined SGA. I was like, okay, this is like the way to go about it. And I saw that following year, Blake Wyndham, who was student body president, and then Edwin Chavez, who was the student body vice president. And I saw Edwin is Latino, and I was like, oh, no way, there's Latino here. Long story short, I connect with him. We become really good friends, and he is a brother of Pi Kappa Alpha. And this is one of those things that just growing up in the States, first generation, I had no idea what a fraternity was. I had no idea all the that as an organization, that could even be a thing. He kind of took me under his wing and very much was a mentor figure for me that really, really helped me in my journey. I rushed and joined Pi Kappa Alpha in fall of 2011, and Edwin became my big brother in the fraternity. From there, it just supercharged it, because one of the things I prided myself so much in that organization at that time was that everyone in it wasn't your traditional, frat bro. There were athletes, there were guys in computer science, engineers, we had musicians in there. So it was a really interesting mix of personalities and talents, but everyone was connected with leadership and service. So from there, I was, let's take it the next step higher, and they helped motivate me, and I ran for student body president. I was very much the underdog in it, but I had always seen it as a sense of service, and to be fortunate enough to serve the community as the first Latino was, just the extra, cherry on top. But yeah, that really connected me with the community and the idea of service, and has been something I've held really, really core to me since then.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thanks for the explanation. I know that I went to UNT fall of 2010, and I rushed a few different fraternities that fall, but I didn't pledge and I didn't join any at that point. I also didn't know what Greek life was. I am from America, not first generation college. Both my parents went, but they were independent, and they didn't join any organizations like that. And so when I saw an opportunity to not just make friends, but mentors, like I actually had fraternity members of other fraternities come in and say, "Hey, I see the leadership qualities in you. I think you would be really good to start a fraternity here on campus." That's how actually I got involved with Phi Kappa Tau, which is the fraternity I ended up colonizing when I was a freshman, and we chartered it when I was a senior. And so that experience was solely from a different fraternity member who is a VP of a different fraternity saying, "Hey, I really like you. If we're not a fit for you, still do it. Like, still find a way. And here's an opportunity." And so I think that a lot of people think it's just socializing or maybe it's just buying friends, but really you're getting mentors, colleagues, like-minded people on the same journey that you can team up with. And it's led to all types of other opportunities. So you're telling me that you essentially got into SGA, you were already in it, in high school, had some experience there, but then you met one of your mentors, your big, your brother, he brought you in. And then from there you ran 3 years in a row. Is that correct? Sophomore.
Yeah. Yeah. So in high school was sophomore, junior, and senior. And then at UNT, I actually had the weird distinction. I actually served in every single branch. So I served as a freshman intern, but then I served, I think that following summer as a judge. They need like a judge for some kind of like case. So I was like a judge. And then I served as a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. And that's then when I ran for the executive branch as president.
Okay, got it. I also grad of the College of Arts and Sciences.
Shout out, shout out.
Yeah.
And real quick too, on that note, as far as your journey as well, because colonizing and really starting a fraternity from scratch there too, a new chapter there is an amazing and incredible undertaking. But I'm so glad that they also saw that potential in you. And that must have meant the world too, because I know for Edwin, I had that similar experience with me, like seeing more in me than I might have seen in myself.
Yeah, definitely. It made me feel someone does recognize me. Someone sees that I can communicate or I have ambition or drive or whatever it may be. It might have just been the way I made people feel when I talked to them. But he noticed that and he brought me into an opportunity and introduced me to someone that I still know today. It was one of their national executives for the national fraternity. They were teaming up with local students to try to get this off the ground. Not an easy task. It was so hard, but it was worth it. And it taught me so many lessons that I still use today. It taught me how to understand people. I was kind of like you in high school where I wasn't the most extroverted person, but I used music and sports to communicate and connect with anyone I could. And I got along with almost anyone, not quite to the level of performance and, making them, smile and happy and just amazed. But I think that was an instrument I used in college too, is I really became a super extrovert. And I'm not even that extroverted today. I used that as a tool to just get to know as many people as possible. Probably one of the reasons I met you too. And, even today, I'm not like that extroverted because I have a little bit more of a clear understanding of my goals and my path. And it's not giving my time to everyone, but I still do get along with most people because of that experience. And I think that's one thing that it really does help when you're a communicator and you have experience with different backgrounds. You can connect with people on, different things, whether it be similar pressures, similar mentality, similar struggles, whatever that is. And that's one thing I want to talk about next is sometimes high performance looks like people have their stuff together. It looks like they know what they're doing, even if they don't. It looks strong from the outside. But how do you know what's actually going on with someone behind, the face they're putting on or behind the leadership position you see them from afar in? How do you pick up on that?
So first off, that was an amazing topic transition. That is super smooth. That's super smooth. That was amazing. Good conversationally. Yes. I know for me, it's very much been an experience of building the plane while flying it with so much of my life. And a constant narrative is the underdog theory or stereotype or framework. I relate a lot to Rocky in that sense, of just always being like, I think I found my niche there, like, and always being like, that's where I get the most leverage, right? But I think also one thing that has just come with growing up and maturing is recognizing that all my heroes, both historically and in my life right now, or mentors in the past, I used to idealize them, right? But then seeing, oh no, these are actually full people, like rounded in the sense of positives, negatives, weaknesses, moments of difficulty, moments when the personality may not be all, under control. And that's what really has kind of explained more of life, is that it's not this XY axis, like linear. I hope this gonna be the right direction. um, Linear, path, but it's very much like a dance, and that it truly is this continuous dance of almost like I really love the yin yang, both analogy, philosophy of it, where to go down you go up, to go up you go down. Like it's just, this is just a natural flow of it, and it's best to find a way to flow with that. Kind of relates to this idea of in Game of Thrones, like winter is coming. Like winter is always coming, but so is summer, right? And so it's just a matter of perspective, really. And also, I think a lot of it comes to self acceptance. For me, one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was the ego and this self, how high I would set my own standards, that it would be so unrealistic, even though I was so talented or whatever it may be. Like, but even then, like no person can do everything. With that, I mean, I would say that popped a lot or reached its apex, sorry, at university. Pretty much the year right after I became president, like that year, because big man on campus, egos through the roof, and I just realized, though, like in a moment where I go back home and my mom and I are talking, and I say something on the lines of, "Mom, don't you know how big of a deal I am?" Right? And she probably made me like, go wash dishes. But just to even say that to my mother, right? It's not my best, brightest moment, but looking back on that now, I'm so glad that my mom, called me out on that and proceeded to humble me there. But it just shows, I think, for all of us that, and I don't care what leader you are, athlete, whatever you are, like everyone has these moments where they're not feeling 100%. And if we can accept that that is part of being human, then we can work from there instead of trying to live up to this insane standard that no one can fulfill.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same thing where big fish, little pond at a certain point, and then you go to a different pond. It's like an ocean, and you're like, whoa, what did that even mean if it's just all ego? And that's a point I also want to discuss, is the ability to be vulnerable when you're hiding behind ego. So when you feel almost like you have to fake it till you make it as a leader, because you can't show weakness, you can't show vulnerability, and then missing things because you're not being your truest self and you're not being as authentic. I noticed that when I reflect back, even 10, 12 years ago, there were times that were not my best moments either, because I thought too much of myself, or I thought that I had everything in line, or I thought that I was a certain person. But it's funny because we were just babies back then, like really, like compared to even today. We're definitely probably more developed people, as long as we continue learning and growing, which I know we both think that way. So did you have any moments where maybe it caused conflict, because you thought you were someone else and then other people maybe just didn't feel that way? Or was there any conflict with that?
I mean, first off, I think we're still babies. I mean, I think we're gonna look back, if we're allowed to live, to 70, 80, we're gonna look back. It's like, what, when I was 30, I still didn't know anything. Like I think that's just a constant thing. Yeah, I think for me, one thing that really kind of it's this like concept of like death by 1,000 was
Paper
it
cuts.
slices or
Yeah.
paper cuts? Yeah, like that analogy, that idiom. There is also growth by 1,000 steps, right? So for me, one of those stepping stones, funnily enough, came from a comic book. So at UNT, my sophomore year, I took a class based off rhetoric of the American superhero. Fascinating class. I don't think it's offered anymore. Dr. Sean Tree offered it. But essentially, we would read comic books, but analyze them through a rhetorical lens. And one of the comic books we read was a comic called All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman. And the reason that blew my mind was because it portrays Superman not as this like, super alpha, like masculine, like chest out, but no, like as a very relaxed, almost like philosopher king type vibe. where if you were the strongest person in the world, if you had all the power, all the intellect, if you had it all, you wouldn't need to prove yourself. You wouldn't need to do that. So instead of coming from a more relaxed position, and you would be open with being vulnerable, because even if someone were to try to harm you, you could always defend yourself, or you would have that self-confidence, not conceitedness, but the self-confidence to know that you can always be like, you are enough, right? That you're enough. So I remember that comic really kind of prying that idea open. As far as to me, where like that biggest dip came was, I always put the highest high and the lowest low for me came very, very close together, where upon graduation, in 2014, I was at like the top of my game. I had just served as student regent, which was appointed by the governor to do that. Graduated flying colors. I had a job lined up. I had a beautiful girlfriend. Things were just like the world was my oyster. And I always relate it to my favorite novel of all time, The Count of Monte Cristo. It's like an old epic, but at the start of that story, Edmond Dantes, the main protagonist, basically has it all. He just got promoted, is engaged right before the fall. And I very much had that happen too, where I go from this very egotistical position where I'm offered the opportunity to go to Columbian monastery and seminary, and I'm immediately like 180 humbled. Like life just shows me like in its rawest, purest form. And I just really connect with ground level, like suffering reality, and have like this great reset moment. So that obviously, like, unfortunately I haven't been the best to some of the people along the way, but that to me was like such an eye-opening moment on a personal level.
Yeah. Yeah. Around that same time frame, I had a similar experience where I also graduated 2014, and I had a job lined up. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I just got Greek Man of the Year, which was a huge honor for me, and from Greek
Wow.
life, and chartered the fraternity. And
Mhm.
it felt like what can I not do? Like, why is life so easy But then I went and then moved to Dallas, and I grew up in Dallas area, so I'm very familiar. But starting a job out there and just going to the day to day of something that wasn't as exciting for me, or it wasn't as leadership focused. It was more of like a manage this property. It was a commercial property, but it was a cool experience. But I had to also really reel in my mindset to, this isn't what it used to be. We're in a new chapter now. And I can take what I learned from the previous chapters and apply them and build something here. But I feel like I was a little short-sighted, where I thought, graduate from college and the rest is easy. The rest is like, we did the hard part. I was working 90-hour weeks, but then
Wow.
I realized, like, you know what? I'm making 30K a year, not that at that time was terrible, but it kind of humbled me a little bit and made me realize, like, the real world is so much different than being in a university or controlled environment where you know all the predictables. You have a checklist. As long as you hit those checks, you're successful. And it made me realize we're competing with people of every age. It's not just college age people in that major. And I think that's one thing I had to face. It was a little hard. And I also had to face some personal things that I hadn't taken care of from the time I was a teenager. I just pushed them down. And they start coming out in different ways, like anger, impatience, projecting things on other people. And I had to do some deep diving in my soul and find, where I really wanted to go and who I wanted to be. And I had to find forgiveness for people who have done me, slighted me in the past, and I was holding grudges, and it was just extra weight, that you can't carry at a certain point. And so I know that psychology has a huge part of communication. It has a huge part of growth and understanding yourself and other people. Both of us went through communication related arts and science majors. The class that you spoke about, I took a few classes that were something similar to that. It was like a metaphysical breakdown of a topic that you don't usually get that deep into. It was a religion of sport. That's the
Oh.
that's the class I took that kind of made me realize, whoa, there are trends and patterns across everything. And just because I think I'm right, or just because that person was wrong, could have an effect on everything else if I can't get past it mentally. And so I wanted to kind of pivot into psychology and performance leadership, and it really just takes me into your DNA of being a magician. And I wanted to ask, like, why magic?
Yeah. I mean, first off, that's so crazy that you have you had a very similar mirror experience. I also won Man of the Year, Good Creek Man of the Year too. I don't know. I can't remember if it was 2013 or 12. I think it was 2012. Um, but yeah, life has this. It's almost like a built-in feature where if you don't address something, it's gonna keep coming up, like until you learn it, overcome it, and then it's just the next one, and then the next one. Okay, so magic, psychology, especially psychology, I could be here all day, man, all day. I always love to kind of joke around with other magicians where if you've done magic like for so long, like it's almost, I don't know if it'd be remiss to say this, but it's basically like an applied psychology degree on some level because you you just gain such an insight on a human level, how we all have a tendency to act, but like from an evolutionary biological level, that transcends culture, language, all that. Because the magic that I've done, I've been so fortunate to share here in the States, works in the same way abroad. I always think of Hong Kong when I was so fortunate to travel there. I went to a monastery and did magic for monks, like in Chinese and Mandarin. I didn't speak the language, but the magic connected and they were still as amazed. Okay, so how this magic journey begins is, funny enough, I have a cousin who is a professional painter now in Los Angeles. But when he was young in high school, he bought like a magic book, like a magic set. And for whatever reason, him and dad talked, and my dad got that book from him. I actually have that book here. I could bring it in a second, but this was in 1999. And for whatever reason, my dad was like, you know what, let's put on a magic show for Christmas. So every year we get together for Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, my dad and I practice and we put it together a little magic show, maybe like a 20-minute show. I have footage of it and it's crazy that I'm so glad my dad filmed it. But it's me at 7 years old doing the magic tricks and my dad talking and narrating and presenting the show. And it was so special because it connected my dad and I to, like a beautiful bonding moment. And especially now, every time I perform, I think of him, and he's still here. Like he's still alive. But it's just a continuous connection I have with my father because it really started with him. For him, it was very much a one and done hobby. For me, I kept going. I liked doing it. I did a couple more little tricks for my friends and family, and it kind of died a little bit because I was maybe 7 years old at that time. So from 7 to 12, there's a little gap. But then at 12, I remember David Blaine, Street Magic Special. You probably saw it, it was all over in the 90s, Chris Angel as well.
Yeah.
I remember getting a VHS tape. If I don't know if any of the audience will remember now, the younger audience. I remember recording this special on a VHS tape and just rewinding it over and over and over, breaking down and reverse engineering the tricks so I could do them. Because I was like, I did magic as a kid. I know some of this, right? From there, I just started doing magic for my family, for my brothers especially. Like they got so tired of seeing all the tricks, and my friends. And just slowly along the way, I started performing more and more for more people. I still remember the first time I went up to a random stranger. It was in my hometown, one of the parks called Fairview Park, and I saw a random couple, and I'd practiced this one trick for so long. And I go up, and I'm like, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" They're like, "What?" Because I just spoke so quickly. And I was like, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" They're like, "Sure." We do magic. The couple really liked it. He's like, "That was great. Here's $5." And I was like, "What? No way!" Like I was so lucky to have positive reinforcement from it. And since then, I mean, kind of like the bird's eye view is did local events in high school, in college. The big push factor was I challenged myself to do magic for 5 new people every single day during that first 6 months of freshman year. And I think at the core of it, though, just to kind of tie it back to psychology, because I could just go on and on this, to tie back to psychology is that it showed me that there is almost like an equation to human behavior. Now, it's not perfect, but it's like a rough kind of estimate that if you can do this, this, and this, you kind of get this result in general, right? But it has to be done in a very particular way, because what makes it so unique is that, okay, I know these 3 things have to happen, but it's different performing it for a group of my guy friends that like video games and I'm like friends with. There's difference performing it for the preppy college girls, right? There's a difference performing it for the seasoned, VP that's been in business 20, 30 years, right? There's a difference how to put to that. Also culturally, there's a difference thing between, even just performing between white, Asian, Latino, black, there's a difference there culturally how to approach it. And more than anything, it comes from a deep curiosity and a deep love of everyone's different perspectives, and just kind of resigning myself, like losing my perspective to put myself in their shoes to figure out, okay, what is the magic they want to see, right? Even if they don't know what it is, how can I do it best to them, to serve the audience? So it still has that element of service in it. And yeah, I could go into a lot more, but that's kind of like a beginning framework of it.
Yeah. And it sounds like it taught you how to be adaptable, how to read a room, understand different people's motivations maybe, or kind of where they're at in life, and how to tailor your performance to them to be most effective. And it does remind me a lot about psychology and even sales. I've been in sales for my entire career for the most part, and understanding how to talk to people and ask them the right questions are based on what room you're in, who you're talking to, the context. It's a skill set that is a science. And I think that a lot of those, cross over. And I think that leadership may just be performance with responsibility. If you think about, think about like, what really is it? Because you can do tasks without being a leader. You can take responsibility without being a leader. But if you're doing both, maybe it becomes a different thing. So did you use your magic principles that you learned in other scenarios, and just other equations in real life?
Oh yeah, of course. And just real quick on the leadership thing. Yeah, it's so amazing how often I've seen this where people in leadership positions aren't leaders. Like it that doesn't just make you a leader by default. There is an element of delegation, of bringing people in to see a common vision that I think is essential to leadership, and that's what can really propel you as a leader. I always compare it to a video game called Mass Effect, where in this, I don't know if you played it, but it's like a space sci-fi game, but you play as Commander Shepard, and you're tasked with like recruiting all these people from all these different walks of life. In the game, it's like different alien species as well, but you unify them, even if they have conflicting values, on one core vision. And that is something that has always spoken to me. One of the most eye-opening things about Magic is just that those first couple of performances where I practice this so much in my room. I love this thing. It's mine. Like I'm in, in front of the mirror just performing this. And then I bring it up to the public and I show someone. I take that risk because there's always a risk in failure in performing. And people liked it. Like, and I get good feedback from that. Like, they're like, what? Like, and then that just kind of becomes this loop of like, okay, the more I practice, the better this gets. And seeing that it's a learnable skill just, was amazing. So what's so insane is that Magic, these principles, right, of how to communicate with people, it's psychology, but also I would say the other half is rhetoric, which rhetoric is very much the defense against the dark arts, because it's happening all the time, both visually, both auditory, marketing, and everything, in every way. And we are at the whims of it, essentially. Like it's always around us. So if you use it, you can use it to your advantage or use it in a way that can help others. But if you don't use it, it will be used against you, essentially. This is why marketing works and everything. I always, a very simple example is that if you gave your significant other flowers in the morning, and then you ask them, for like a ride, hey, can you pick this up in the store or something later on? They'll probably be more favorable than if you forgot it was your anniversary that day. There's a difference. Like, obviously that's like relationship dynamics, but there's a difference rhetorically, even in a job interview, right? It'd be much different if I show up in my pajamas versus in a suit for a job interview. It's not just language when it comes to rhetoric, it's visual. And as a magician, I'm like hyper fixated on everything, on how I'm presenting. Every word, every enunciation, like, can make a difference if people say, oh, that was cool, or if they freak out. Another big thing is silence, like the power of silence. In a lot of magic that I do now, like after I learned these lessons, to really like boost like a reaction, is you have the longest portion of silence right before the reveal. when I was in college, I would go, trick, set up, reveal, boom, like back to back to back. And you would get some great reactions. But now, like when I give that little bit of silence, a little bit of pause, boom, like it just, goes like through the roof. But the two areas I would say, sorry, I'm still getting to your question. The two areas I would say I've used magic the most has been making friends, of course, dating, and sales. Like they all kind of like mix into one. In sales specifically, just that idea as a magician where you put yourself, you put the audience first, you put the client first. Okay, what is it that they really need? Am I even the right fit for them? Especially now, I do a ton of sales calls because I'll get inquiries on my website for magic, for magic shows, either magic shows, mingling magic, whatever performance it may be. But I also realize that I am not the right fit for everyone. I'm positioning myself now as a corporate magician, keynote speaker. Many times I'm out of people's budgets. Many times, even if I'm in their budget, maybe I'm not offering what they're looking for. And so it's a disservice. Like I don't have to do that now. When I first started, though, I was taking any job I could get, right? But maybe that can give some insight, though, as far as how I approach it.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And I want to ask, what happened after you graduated from school? I think you started your own company. Let's explore that a little bit, and then I know from there you moved. And so, tell me about the video production company.
After graduating in 2014, right, I get that super high. I hit super low at the seminary, the monastery, and I come back to the States, right? When I come back to the States, my girlfriend that I'd broken up with, right? Turns out we're no longer compatible. We're just in different perspectives now. I go work for the University of North Texas, UNT, for 1 year as an admissions counselor. Then the following year, my father, our family business is income tax. So he needs some help. The business was growing. So I became an income tax preparer and notary public, and I helped out my father for a year. Really, really cool. I got to actually buy a house with my dad and remodel it and like flip it. So that was like a huge learning experience with him. Let's see, that puts me at about 2016. Then in 2016, I was unemployed, like tax season ended. And I was like, you know what? Like I love suits. I've always loved wearing suits. Like that's just like a genetic thing. I was wearing suits back in like high school. And I was like, I want a job where I can wear a suit, but I don't really know what to do. So I look around and I'm like, well, where could I wear a suit? Oh, like a hotel. So I go to the local Hilton Garden Inn, and as luck would have it, as fate would have it, I walk in and they had just fired someone. So I get interviewed and hired on the spot. And yeah, I start working my way up. I work as a sales like front desk associate. Then I get promoted to a sales sales associate, then a sales manager. So I was able to move my way up there with it. While I'm doing this, I'm getting involved in the community, and I start making videos for different local businesses. And keep in mind, like I had made a couple of videos growing up. My brother and I were always interested in this. My father and I, another business he had was we would film weddings and quinceañeras. So we had a little bit of experience there, but it was just on my own. And I started making little promo videos, little commercials for free as like trades. Like, hey, I'll trade you, this video for, 5 massages at a masseuse, But the thing was, I didn't have enough confidence to actually launch it as a business. As fate would have it, Hilton has a video competition every year. So I submitted a music video where I rap with a backing track of Hamilton the musical. And I read a biography of Conrad Hilton, the founder of Hilton Hotels, and I rap about his journey over this Hilton track. And yeah, like I became one of the 4 worldwide winners. So I went a weekend trip to the Grammys, the 60th Grammys, insane. It was an amazing experience. But more than all, it gave me the confidence that what I was doing video-wise, like, oh, there's something here. So upon coming back, my younger brother and I, Edward, he also graduated from UNT. He graduated from film school at UNT. We are like, you know what? Let's do this together. So March 1st, 2018 was when we started the business. And I leave Hilton and we go all in. And my brother and I, since that date of March 1st, 2018, so this will be the 6th year. Yeah, sorry, this will be the 8th year. Wow, Lee, that's wild. So we'll be going into our 8th year. We have paid all our bills. Sometimes, it's been tight, but we've made it happen as entrepreneurs. And I cannot thank my brother enough because I essentially cover the sales direction side, but my brother truly has the artistic eye. So he handled like the cinematography, the production side of things. He's always been incredible behind camera. But together, it just showed me just the value of working together as a team and really trusting someone. I've been so fortunate that I've been able to do this with my brother, because how many businesses and families, crumble. But we were able to really get some good traction going. Probably our top client has been the city of Sherman. All these years, they really believed in us as well, and they just opened up so many doors for us to do more video production. And we just learned so much, like so much on just how to structure a business, how to set up invoicing, how to prepare and deal with clients, right? All this just really built upon itself. And then clients that would be clients for video would also become clients for magic. So I would, someone to do magic parties or Christmas parties for them. Fast forward then to 2021, my youngest brother, Danny, had just finished up his school as well. So now we're trying to figure out, okay, what's the next move? So we're like, you know what? What if we all three moved to Austin? And we did it. So we moved to Austin, take a big step. And then here in Austin, on November 4th, 2021, my brother Edward, myself, and our childhood best friend Christian, who also lives in Austin, the three of us decided, you know what? Let's start a soccer podcast. And just a little bit of context here. We had tried it one time before in Denton, but didn't really work out. But now we had a lot more experience, better equipment as well. And we start the show. And we got very lucky that we figured out the format pretty quickly, the setup. My brother Edward was the host, Christian was the co-host, and I would serve as producer, doing like the video, the lighting, the audio, all behind the scenes. And by having the team together, by delegating responsibility, we did so much more than what could have been just a solo job. Within a couple of weeks, we started getting a couple of subscribers, more viewers. We get to 100, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000. We then reached the milestone, as you can see over there, the 100,000 subscriber plaque from YouTube. Insane. Christian, our co-host, was working as an electrical engineer, but we got enough momentum that he was able to quit his job to go full time, which is just crazy, right? From there, in this past year, 2025, we reached basically about 500,000 followers across all platforms and became the second largest soccer podcast in the Americas. So that, of course, got the attention of the number one podcast. So the number one podcast, Men in Blazers Network specifically, reached out, and they actually offered to acquire us. So we became part of the Men in Blazers Network this past year, and that has now opened the doors completely, where we're set up now to move to New York City, cover the World Cup, and continue now with the Give and Go is the channel there. So that's been an insane journey of what basically 2x2 Media started off as this, a guy with a camera making random commercials, but has really grown into this.
Wow. That's all I can say is just wow. That's such a success story that, I mean, it's such a rare thing to see that type of momentum from, I don't want to say mom and pop, but bro and bro, like it's a brother's company, and then you grow it and you just position yourself in the perfect vertical, because you got to the point where it grew to second most. Number one saw you guys like, let's team up because you guys are doing something right and we want what you have. And so the doors that are going to be open from that, I mean, you mentioned that it's been amazing so far, but it's just getting started. And to cover the World Cup, I mean, that's lifetime experience, so that's such a cool thing to share. Tell me more about the second show, Rudy's Roundtable. It sounds like it's more personal to you. Your name's in it. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, and also kind of, so much of it goes back to my dad. So just because as a precursor, right, my brother Edward and I would go with my dad to film these weddings in quinceañeras. So that's how we first even started there. Then we had our own YouTube channel. It might still be up, but don't look for it. So it's crazy to see how that's grown. The second show then, Rudy's Roundtable, it came from a place of, I lost one of my best friends in 2021, and that just kind of set like the stage of, wow, like, life really is quite precious. Like this can be gone in an instant. And that just made me kind of take pause and say, you know what, like, at least on like a personal level, I love, taking pictures of people and speaking to people, but wouldn't it just be great just to record just these conversations with my friends, right? Especially, it started specifically with family members. And it's never been a thing where Rudy's Roundtable was not like a business endeavor. It's just a personal kind of project. I don't release. I think there's maybe about 20-ish episodes, but it's more of a personal kind of ongoing thing just for me. That I'd love to kind of put out there with people who mean a lot to me in my life. I interviewed my brothers, my cousins, and I also got to interview my grandmother. She's at that point 92. She's 94 now, and she's still rocking and rolling. But I did almost like a 2-hour interview with her because I was like, we all know her stories. Like, I just thought it was so important just to film that, just get that on film while she's still, lucid and kicking. And that has just kind of turned into this project of also just kind of figuring out, not figuring out, sorry, like taking advantage of this network of people that I've gone to meet, these amazing people I've gone to meet. I've had everyone from women who are like psychic. I've had other magicians. I had, unfortunately, I wasn't able to release this episode, but I got the global brand ambassador for Tomb Raider, for Lara Croft, on the show, but we weren't able to release it because of PR. I've had other speakers. I had immigrant professionals. Like it's just a really interesting mix of people that I've gone to connect with. And more than anything, I think for me, it well, for one, just kind of keeps my conversation skills going, but it really just allows me to kind of step into someone else's world for a little bit and kind of see what is your journey. And we talk about, just sometimes just fun stuff. Sometimes we talk about really deep things. One of my friends went through a lot of muscle pain growing up and his whole journey. And these stories like inspire me so much. And they add just this richness and texture to it. Because it's one thing to listen to a podcast, but to do it yourself, as you're doing here now, there's a richness of who you become as a person by going through that, by thinking about, by actively listening, that you don't get if you're just, like the third person listening to two people speak. You get some of the information, but not that full transformative experience. And yeah, so I just want to keep that show going, and just keep, sharing amazing conversations with people on the way. You included, man.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this, is that it's not a for-profit monetized show. I'm not trying to be the number one in this or that. I want to storytell, and I want to meet people, and I want to bring people back from my life that I've already met that I think have such a cool story to share, that it could spark something in someone else, or it could be something that someone needs to hear that day, when they're feeling a certain way and they're not sure what's next, or if they can even aspire to do what their dreams really were. And I know a lot of things that a lot of people think that you X, Y, and Z, and then here's the result. But life happens at its own speed. It happens in its own pathway. Like there's a saying that, we tell God our plans and he laughs. And that's one of the things, is that I knew if I just put something out here, if I externalize using the skill set that I have, and I know that I can talk with people, then it's also giving me a new perspective. It's not just about, hey, here's my mindset, here's what you should be. That's not it at all. It's sharing different perspectives, different people with different experiences, and just putting it externally out there. And whatever it becomes, it will become what it needs to. And it's like I said, it's not a business for profit. I do talk a lot about real estate because that's my full-time career now, and has been really even since when we met. I was already managing properties in college. And so it's kind of just a part of who I am, I think. But everyone deals with real estate one way or another. It's you're a renter, or you're a buyer, or you're a seller, or you're living with someone who is. And it's one of those universal things that to me it's easy to talk about. But the mindset and the psychology and communication and the discipline and choice making and things like that are also the other part of this podcast. And to watch your story, we met in Denton, Texas. It was a decent sized university, but to go from Denton to Austin to now New York City, there's a story there, and I'm glad you've been able to share a lot of those steps today. I wanted to ask you, was New York always part of the plan, or when did that become part of the next chapter for you?
Great question, man. First off, I love what you're doing here, by the way, too. Like this is amazing to see. And I'm so excited for your growth and just all these amazing conversations that you'll have here. For New York, this kind of came across about 2022, I'd say a year into Austin, where funny enough, it happened with my brother Edward. So at that point, his girlfriend Alexa, she's originally from New York City, but they got engaged last year, and so that like really solidified this concept of they were always kind of moved to New York, but the boys, right, like myself and two brothers, and then Christian, the four of us, had talked a couple of years ago about what if we all moved to the big city, right, to New York City, and kind of going back and forth on could it be doable, could we do it or not. Now with the acquisition and like where that's put us now, finally having benefits like the first time in years, it's doable now. Like we can actually do it, and especially doing it together, almost as like a last hoorah. Before my brother, he'll get married later this year. I'm actually officiating the wedding, so it's a great little honor there as well. But before he goes on to married life, we get a chance to do one last hurrah as the brothers and the boys there. But it wasn't really necessarily something that we knew for sure. It was kind of always in the background, but last year like really became solidified. For myself, I am not really a cold person. I don't really like I would much rather prefer for it to be 110 than like below 10. But I also live this idea of testing myself, of pushing myself, and there's nothing more uncomfortable to me than being truly in like the city of like the big dogs, right? The big boys, like sharks, really. A lot of people also believe, rightly so, that the best magicians are in Las Vegas, but they're actually in New York City. So in Las Vegas, you'll have the most popular magicians, right? They can sell out tickets, but the highest quality, like the actual like top tier ones, are all in New York City. So that to me on the magic front is very inspiring because I want that challenge, but it's also coming from a point now of like it's this balance I'm trying to strike of I don't want to go there to like prove myself because I think it's coming from like a chasing mindset, right? Like I think I know what I am and what I have to offer now. So it's more like I want to present this now to a larger stage. But I also do want to challenge myself. I do want to become better and really level up on the magic side of things. The two things I really want to do is after doing magic to iShow Speed, like the largest live stream in the world, it really inspired me that there's no one else really doing live streaming magic. So I want to essentially do what David Blaine did, how I was inspired in 1989 with the stream magic specials, but do that every single day. Like go out, film it for an hour, live stream it, and just keep doing it over and over. I'm inspired as well by a gentleman named Ari at Home. He does this, but with music and has people freestyle. So in that style. So that'll be one branch of it. I will still be performing for corporate events and will actually pay the bills. But the other thing I'm really, really fascinated that I want to do is some sort of stunt, some sort of endurance or some sort of feat that is visual and that's public and legal too. It has to be legal. As if some of your audience may not be familiar, but David Blaine did a whole series of stunts in New York City. There was one where he stood on top of just a pole. It was like a 90-foot, 80-foot pole in the middle of Central Park for like a day and a half, and then jumped off it into like a bunch of cardboard boxes. And so it's this mix of mental resilience, of a Callis mindset, right? That I think is important to put in there. But for me, more than anything, it's a symbol. It's a symbolism behind it. I always go back to like the godfather of magic, Houdini, right, where he tied himself upside down in a straitjacket, hung up by a crane in the middle of Times Square, and he escaped it. And keep in mind, he was like a 5'5" Jewish immigrant from Hungary, I believe I got that right. So it was a symbol, though. Like he did this in the middle of like the Great Depression, right? The times are tough. So if this guy could free himself symbolically from these shackles, then we can free ourselves as well. There's like a symbolism behind it. So that's the driving force of it. It's not necessarily self-aggrandizement, but it's like, how can I use this symbol, this magic, to inspire people to be better and to live better?
Wow. Yeah, I think that's going to be a massive opportunity. And to watch your evolution in the path it's just things get bigger and better, every place you go, because you keep your mindset right. You're not chasing something that isn't who you are. You're developing who you are and challenging yourself to rise to the top. I mean, when you go to the place where they have the number one magicians in the world, you're going to get better. Like no matter how good you are now, in Texas compared to New York, I could see there's probably a big difference there. And Austin's a great place, for music and for entertainment and for performing arts and everything. But it's hard to compete with the Big Apple. And when it comes down to it, who you surround yourself with will rise you to them or bring you down. And I think that's another part of the mindset that you really encompass is just perseverance, pushing through, challenging yourself, setting goals, and chasing them as hard as you can with everything you've got and learning along the way. And so I want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. Your story is really inspiring to hear what's happened so far. It just seems like you said, we're babies. There's still so much story to tell and to live. And are there any final thoughts on mindset that you'd like to share before we close out today?
Yeah, I actually have one final super quick trick if I can do for you here. I was like, I'd be remiss if I don't at least do like a little something for you. So Kannon, can you please so give me a number between 1 and 100, just any number. First number that pops into your mind.
Say it out loud.
Yeah, go for it.
77.
77. Okay. So I want you to remember this moment. Okay. Remember this moment. You have an opportunity here to keep 77 or change it. What would you like to do?
I'm going to keep it.
Keep it. Okay. Amazing. I want you to see this. I'm going to try and do my best to get this thing to focus here. So I have here in my notes app. Well, okay. Let me go here. That should be good. Okay. I have different lists. And what I did is I made them all 1 through 100. So for example, I'll go to greatest movies, right? Let me see if this will work. There we go. Maybe a little bit farther back. I'll let it focus there for a second. Maybe here. So I made different lists 1 through 100. All are pretty much different. There's not like in any specific order, but they're all different. I don't know if it's mirrored here, but maybe the other kid can help us out here. But we have 1 through 100. We have beverages as well, celebrities. Let me see if that'll focus. I'm just trying to show you a little example here. Let's see if it, there it goes, boom, okay. And then I also have, for example, let's do cities. So you said 77. So let me see if this will go here. Okay, let me zoom in here. Okay, let's see if we'll get a little bit closer. Boom, okay. Can you see what 77 is? I can't.
Yes.
What is it?
Rome, Italy.
Rome, Italy. Okay, any connection to Rome or to 77? Like,
no,
because sometimes people choose like their favorite jersey or like it seems to be something like that. Like their favorite player. Have you been to Rome at all?
No, I haven't. I've been to Italy, but not to Rome.
Okay. So look, the whole show, that envelope with the question mark's been on this. I want to do this slowly so you can see that there's no switches, nothing. Here we go. Check this out.
What? Are you kidding me?
You could have changed. You could have changed your number.
Yeah, my mind's blown right now. Rome,
Awesome.
Italy. That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to go there. I haven't been there yet. Yeah, 7's my favorite number. And when you said, if you were saying 1 to 10, I would have said 7. But when you said 1 to 100, I was like, okay, let's make it 77. Nice.
But no, just closing thoughts, man. I just wanted just to thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm so glad to reconnected with you after all these years, and incredible to hear your story and all this success that you've had along the way as well. And yeah, man, let's just keep moving forward. Let's keep rocking and rolling. And let's keep the magic alive. Keep the magic alive.
Yeah. Where can people find you for your podcast and for your magic? Like, where can they go to find you?
The best thing, if you want to find me, is just to search Rudy is Magic. Rudy is Magic. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it's all the same handle. You can also find me online on my website at Rudy Reynoso. It's REYNOSO.com. If you want to hire me for magic, you can check out more of it there.
Well, thank you so much. And this podcast has been magic. And I want to say thanks to our listeners today. If this conversation showed you something new, sharpened your way of thinking, or challenged your thinking, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And a big thanks for the magician himself and for the real perspective today. And life sometimes is magic when you make it that. If you want more tools, insights, and behind the scenes content, join the Callis Mindset community. Find us on any platform at Callis Mindset. Thanks and have a good one.